So New Japan Pro Wrestling has been in a really weird place for a while now, and I am going to talk about it. Don't worry, if you don't give a shit about wrestling, I will do what I can to make this as interesting as possible for you. Because it's a really weird little story that's playing out right now. So when people talk about the golden age of wrestling, they could mean 1,000 different things. Maybe they're talking about like the late 80s WWE. Maybe they're talking about like Ring of Honor mid 2000s. Maybe they're talking about late 90s ECW. But for me, when I think of the period in my life when I most enjoyed wrestling, it's tempting to say Attitude Era and all the weird hormones that was playing into, but I think truly for me, it's like 2016 New Japan Pro Wrestling. This was like a totally different time in wrestling. And it worked because basically the only real alternative that was kind of like thriving at that point was WWE. And they were just in the middle, or at least the kind of beginnings of the big dog Roman Reigns era, which is still to this day maybe the worst era of wrestling I have ever experienced in my life. There were bright spots, there was just very few of them, but it was that frustration that brought me to New Japan. And so, I stuck on and Wrestle Kingdom, and I was like, okay, let's see what this Japanese wrestling is about. And I was absolutely fucking stunned by what I saw. Just the level of wrestling, the choreography, the brutality of it. This was an era where strong style wrestling reigned supreme. And what strong style wrestling meant was basically, you know how to make a boot to the fucking head look real? What if you just boot someone in the head? Strong style wrestling had like kind of evolved from like Antonio Inoki and had like this new generation of like people who kind of pushed it forward, like Shinsuke Nakamura and all these different performers. And like to someone who had been watching wrestling their whole life, tuning into 2016 New Japan, it was just insane. Like one of the most incredibly stacked heavyweight divisions you have ever seen. The real proof that like New Japan of 2016 had like the most just insane roster is the fact that neither Minoru Suzuki or Tomohiro Ishii ever even held the heavyweight title. That is how incredible this era was. Then you had people like Naito, Okada, Tanahashi, Kenny Omega, of course, and what it led to was this build in New Japan. This like kind of boiling up of New Japan where like American audiences were starting to talk about it in like a mainstream kind of way. And it started to feel inevitable that New Japan was about to kind of blow up and become a genuinely like global phenomenon in wrestling. And particularly when you look to New Japan's future, because you had right there in the wings Kota Ibushi. For my money, one of the most incredibly naturally talented wrestlers of all time, and a darn beautiful man to boot. However, fast forward to the modern day, and that never really came to pass. Proof to me that we are living in one of the darkest timelines is that Kota Ibushi never really came the guy in New Japan. Now, he did have like a heavyweight title run. It ended badly. It seems like he's racked with injury from his incredibly entertaining but dangerous wrestling style. And Ibushi, unfortunately, just has not been himself in years. You can see me talk about his whole Golden Lover storyline with Kenny Omega back in the very first wrestling video I ever did. Which, honestly, even though that video is from like 8 or 9 years ago, I still think it probably holds up okay. And in the years since, New Japan ran into a lot of problems. One of the biggest ones was COVID. COVID kind of decimated New Japan's roster in terms of international talent. But another big one is AEW. AEW rose up in that time. And what that meant for a lot of New Japan talent is that now there was not one but two options for top NJPW guys to go and make like, now, I don't know this for certain, but sure, the way like the amount of talent that's transferred over, it sure seems like you can make a lot more money in America as a very talented Japanese wrestler than you can in Japan. And what this meant is there was this serious talent bleed at the top of New Japan. You had Okada leaving, you had Kenny Omega leaving, you had just all these wrestlers, all these like future megastars kind of exiting the company. And it really took the wind out of the sails in New Japan, and in particular because they refused to build up a new top guy. The title belt went back and forth between Omega, Okada, Naito, Tanahashi so much that they kind of neglected to raise anyone new up to like a main event level. And what it meant in this mass exodus is that there was no one really to take their place, in particular when things didn't really work out with Kota Ibushi. Fast forward to a couple of years ago, and they bring on 3 new younger talents. They called them the Three Musketeers back then, which apparently these guys really hated, and that was Ren Narita, Yota Tsuji, and Shoto Umino. These 3 guys are very young, but a lot of people are saying they're the future of New Japan. And in them, you can kind of see like the old of New Japan. You can see like Shota Umino is like a brand new like Tanahashi, Ren Narita feels like a Shibata, and Yota Tsuji kind of feels like a bigger, heavier Naito. But you kind of run into some problems. For different reasons, each one of these guys kind of goes a different direction than we're kind of thinking. Ren Narita, when he started, his basic thing was he was a wrestler. He was kind of just a simple, true neutral, not a good guy, not a bad guy wrestler, but the thing is, he was one of the best wrestlers on the planet. His match with, I think it's Kamiyama from Noah in the G1, absolutely incredible. But they end up saddling him with this weird gimmick where he's the leader of this group called House of Torture. And the House of Torture's whole thing is they kind of interfere in matches, kind of like Bullet Club did. But unlike Bullet Club, which was like this faction of outsiders who was like resorting to whatever means they had to get over in like this hostile territory, House of Torture, they're just kind of like Saturday morning cartoon bad guys for the most part. And it's kind of fucking lame. And I still don't know why they've saddled Ren Narita in that position. It doesn't speak to any of his strengths, and he really just feels kind of lost. Shota Umino is still good, but it's nearly like, I saw someone make this kind of distinction with Shota Umino. He's sort of in his Roman Reigns big dog era. He's a good wrestler, he has a lot of potential, but when you see his entrance, when you see him come out, it's like he just hasn't found it. He hasn't tapped into that thing that will let him be one of the biggest wrestlers on the planet. And personally, I think he'll probably get there. I really do. I think the day is going to come when this guy will be the face of New Japan. It hasn't happened yet. And I think sometimes when a guy gets pushed too early, like Shota, what it means is they kind of try and like make it work even if it's not working. I think they get robbed of like those kind of early years in the spotlight where they can really mess with their own presentation. And I don't think Shota's found it. Finally, you have Yota Tsuji. And I would say out of the 3, this is the guy who feels like the least ready for the big time. He's a little rougher in the ring, but he does have a kind of undeniable charisma. And for the last couple of years, he has kind of been pushed as like the top guy in this new era of New Japan. And it's kind of worked and it kind of hasn't. Hardcore wrestling fans tend to really like him. But if you were to ask someone, okay, what is the appeal of Yota Tsuji? He's kind of off kilter. It's kind of hard to describe. And what's more, he's kind of become the front man for this kind of internal war that's been bubbling up in New Japan. See, that whole kind of thing about New Japan becoming like this global success and having like an American wing and all that kind of stuff, that's very much like one ethos in how people think New Japan should be. And another ethos is that it shouldn't be global. Another ethos should be that it's this distinctly Japanese brand where titles are defended on Japanese TV in Japanese territories and nothing else. And Yota Tsuji has become quite aggressively kind of a poster child for this, saying he would never defend a belt overseas. And what you have is this kind of war between New Japan being like this domestic property and this global force. And that was actually a war you saw very much play out in the Wrestle Kingdom main event, which was Kenny Omega versus Tanahashi. Tanahashi is like the Japanese John Cena. He is like the poster child of New Japan. And his victory over Omega signaled that we were going back into this like internal, more domestic era. But yeah, so Yota Tsuji is now being pushed as a star, but like, personally speaking, when I look at Yota Tsuji and I look at like his presentation and I look at his clothes and he wears this hat, he has this big smile, and he does have a great smile. He's decent in ring up till recently, we'll get to that. And his entrance theme is maybe the worst entrance theme I have ever heard. I'm gonna do like an impression of it because I don't want to play it because I don't want this to get copyrighted. But it's kind of like I can't actually hear what it's saying, so like I don't know what language it's even in. But that's what it sounds like, and it's just when he has like a banger match and like he wins and that music plays, I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, I hate this. So this all brings us to this year's G1, and I would say the biggest problem with New Japan right now is that it just doesn't really have an ace. That's not even me shit talking Yoda Tsuji. I think Yoda Tsuji has a very important role to play in the company, but I don't think what he is that like universal kind of talent where everyone kind of wants to see them. And in fairness, it takes people a long time to get over in New Japan. Generally, it is a promotion of a glacial pace. But I feel like what they don't have is someone who has that natural connection to the crowd. Yoda Tsuji, again, beloved by the hardcore, but like outside that, I do think it's kind of, he is significantly less so. And personally, me at my most dickish has described Yoda Tsuji as a main event smile and a mid-card everything else. Which I'm sure will upset someone. This all brings us to this year's G1 Climax. And the G1 Climax is this massive round robin style tournament in New Japan where you basically get 2 blocks of around 8 or 9, 10 people, and everyone fights everyone in this round robin style tournament. And the people with the most wins, the top 2 people, it changes every year, the top 2 people from that division face off in a little mini 4-man tournament, and the winner of that tournament wins the G1. They're given a big trophy, and they are then allowed to go and challenge for the New Japan heavyweight title. But I think with this tournament, there was kind of even more than that riding, because what they wanted was to find that ace, like to find the person who could take that empty spot at the very top of New Japan. And 2 wrestlers that everyone is looking at is Yuya Amora and Ryohei Oiwa. These are 2 still very kind of young wrestlers who came up in the New Japan system. Both spent time outside the system as well, but everyone's kind of looking at these 2. And I'd kind of been out of New Japan for a while, and so I was really interested to see what these 2 had. And my biggest criticism of both these guys going into this tournament is that they kind of look like 2 dudes that if they did a fusion dance, they would turn into Tanahashi. Out the gate, both in like their presentation and some in their like in-ring style, it felt like New Japan trying to do Tanahashi again. But admittedly, that was a kind of uneducated assessment on my part, and I was like, okay, what do these guys actually have? And one of the strangest things about both of them, but I would say like the tournament as a whole, is that the commentators are really trying to push this new era of strong style. And what that means is like much less so people getting booted in the face for real, and much more so a lot of very kind of grounded technical work. So a lot like a big return to mat-based wrestling, a big return to like kind of 70s or even arguably some kind of like a new generation WWF style wrestling where it's less so about lads like just actually hurting each other and more so about like the kind of psychology and ground game of it all, which I have mixed feelings on again, because I would say when ground-based wrestling was more in vogue, it was before things like UFC or, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu were widely known, where people actually knew what a real fight on the ground looked like. And to some people, myself included, sometimes when professional wrestling tries to get too fancy with its ground game, it can look a bit silly. And I only say that because like I have years and years of experience with grappling, and so when I see some stuff in wrestling, it does look a bit odd. And so I'm watching every single match of this G1, and I start to feel a bit worried because there's a lot of good matches, and there's some even very good matches, but what I would say there is a lack of is great matches. And the G1 is generally this kind of breeding ground for all these very like random match of the year competitors, because you have the wrestlers wrestling night after night and things can get very like experimental and weird and expressive, and sometimes out of nowhere two wrestlers you never would have thought of have just like these match of the year contenders, and it's a really amazing resource for making that happen. But I'm watching and I'm just kind of not really seeing it. And I would say like this new era of strong style, it's not really clicking with me either. And I don't seem to be the only one either, because across the New Japan internet fandom explodes a meme. And it's this "we used to be a proper country" meme. And it first goes insanely viral for that text accompanying a photo of Finn Balor, Shinsuke Nakamura, Kazuchika Okada, Tetsuya Naito, Tanahashi, and Kota Ibushi. And goddamn, you look at this photo and it's just like, holy fucking shit, what a legendary lineup. This photo is even from when Naito hadn't even entered his Tranquilo era, when he was still the Stardust genius who no one liked. And when you take into account that he hasn't even developed into his final form yet, it's fucking insane. So this photo goes incredibly viral, and it triggers an absolute war online between the people who used to love 2016 New Japan and the current fans of New Japan. And like, you see this in a lot of fandoms with like ongoing media sometimes, where you have the people who just want to enjoy what the thing currently is now versus the people who kind of like idolize this past era. And like, I will straight up say it, I am absolutely someone who is like, man, it's just not like 2016 anymore. Because the truth is, of course it isn't. It's a different promotion with a different style, pushing a different batch of talent. And, whichever you kind of like is up to you. But at the same time, it's really hard to ignore that heat, it's not there anymore. That feeling that New Japan was about to break into global territory. And so it is absolute chaos out there in the New Japan landscape. This very quickly becomes a meme. All of a sudden, we have people posting, "we used to be a proper country," to all kinds of weird shit with strange moments from New Japan and just all this stuff. And things get so heated that people start begging the moderators of the NJPW subreddit to do something about this madness. A new subreddit gets formed in the process, and it is absolute just chaos, with some people saying that no, New Japan is good, this is the best G1 in years, other people saying that the company has completely lost its way. And as all this is happening, I'm watching this G1, and I'm still watching, and some stuff starts to happen. I'm starting to notice these little bright spots, and I would say one of which is Boltin Oleg, this just absolute monster of a Kazakhstani wrestler who is starting to put on some really intense matches. Another thing happens. Yota Tsuji, the man who I had declared a main event smile, mid-card, everything else, undoubtedly is having the most consistent, best performances of the entire G1. You can look at the Cage Match ratings, which is like this website for just, aggregating different people's rating of different matches. And Yota Tsuji is by far running away with this G1 in terms of having great matches. Now, is that going to change the fact that maybe he's not the guy, the future of New Japan, at least not in the sense of like New Japan needing an ace? Probably not really. But it is proving to a lot of people, myself included, that no, he is a main event player. He really can be a big deal for the future of New Japan. And I would say I'm happy to eat crow on that. Whenever I talk shit about a wrestler, whenever I say I don't think they're there or I don't think they're the guy, it is always with the hope of, I hope they turn into the guy. I hope this person proves me wrong. I was a 2016 Will Ospreay naysayer. I look at what he's done in AEW, I look at his late run in New Japan, I look at his whole assassin turn, and I'm happy to eat those words, But then outside that, I very quickly start to notice my new favorite New Japan wrestler, Yuto Ice. Yuto Ice is like this weird combination between if you took Vanilla Ice, fused him with Tomohiro Ishii and multiplied it by a rhinoceros. He has this totally distinct style among this new generation of New Japan, which is very like strike focused, very kind of like a lot of hard, heavy hits. And he's a former MMA fighter, so it feels legit. Like it feels like it works. But his gimmick is just the silliest, weirdest thing. He's like a weird kind of hip hop rapper dude, and his music comes out and it hits and it goes, "Let's get high," and that's his song. And the commentators very quickly add, "Let's get high." On pro wrestling, they're very keen to point out that Yuto Ice, the high he's talking about, is the high of pro wrestling and nothing else. Nothing else. And I think Yuto Ice probably disagrees on that. But the dude just has this weird charisma. He feels fresh. He feels different. He feels original. And I'm just kind of captivated by him every time he comes out. I call Michelle into the room and I'm like, "Dear, check out my new wrestler who I like." She graciously chooses to indulge me on that one. He has this weird fucking match with Yota Tsuji where Yota Tsuji literally slaps the titties off him. It's kind of brutal, but it's kind of great. And there's also, man, there's this one video that you should check out, and it's when Hiromu, one of the old junior heavyweights of New Japan, really kind of did legendary things for that division, and a really well-respected wrestler. He's leaving, and Yuto Ice just starts crying in the middle of the ring, like crying real tears. And you know, it's like, oh shit, there's like an emotion to this guy. There's like a tenderness to this guy. Like there really is something here. And you know, you have other people like Aaron Wolf, who is green as fuck, started wrestling in 2025 and is immensely talented. Like, I'm not saying he's there. He's absolutely not there. But fuck, I haven't seen someone take to wrestling this quickly. And it's like, okay, there is reasons to be excited. There is bright things in New Japan's future. But then you get to the final of the tournament. And who is it? It's Ryohei Oiwa versus Yuya Uemura. And it, like, there is a certain feeling here of this is Ryu versus Ken. You know, this feels like two people who are maybe destined to do this forever. The two kind of top guys. And like, I would say their presentation, it's weird, right? Because if you look at Ryohei Oiwa, I don't like his presentation. He has this very AI-sounding theme song. He wears this kind of bomber jacket and sunglasses to the ring, and it's not really working. But where it does start to work is when that fucking bell rings. Because Ryohei Oiwa, he has this really crazy twist to his wrestling. Now, the dude can hit like a dump truck and he can be like believable, but what's really fascinating about him is his finisher. It's a headlock. Literally, the simplest move in wrestling is this dude's finisher. And somehow, it's fucking hype as shit. You look at how he locks it in, you look at how he makes it a part of the story, and you fucking believe it. You're like, oh my god, he's gonna crush that dude's head. And it's kind of mesmerizing, but in a way that, like, I've seen so many headlocks in wrestling. I've never seen one used as a finisher, and it's crazy. And the way the final 5 minutes of this dude's matches play out, it's like he's got the headlock and his opponent is suplexing him, beating the shit out of him, but he won't let go. He will not stop crushing their fucking head. And it's great. You know, it's genuinely, it makes for some really captivating matches. A lot of matches for me that, like, were just off 5 stars. And so then you have Yuya Uemura. And what Yuya Uemura does have is that presentation. You listen to his theme song, you watch his entrance, you look at like his styling, and he's the firestorm. He's got it. He does have this kind of babyface shine, but where I think he lacks is in ring. I think the entire tournament, this guy's shit has just looked a little too soft in ring. His deadbolt suplex isn't really working for me as a finisher, and it's just like, I'm not really ranking this guy's matches among the best of the G1. So this is kind of what we're doing. We are going in with these two guys for the final, and they have an absolute fucking magical match. I could not believe what I was seeing. When they announced that this match had run for 30 minutes, I couldn't believe it. And the most fucked up part, the vast majority of this match is wrist locks. It is headlocks. It is like very low key submission based wrestling, but the like psychology and storytelling, it's all there. And at some point, like Yuya Uemura, even he starts to prove me wrong, where I feel like there's one moment where he hits a shining elbow, which I have never seen before, which looks absolutely fucking incredible. He hits a deadlock suplex that is just beautiful. It all clicks, and all of a sudden they've convinced me. I am seeing this new era of strong style, and honestly, I'm kind of sold. And you know, all the way throughout this tournament, I have been thinking about this video because I wanted to do a video on where New Japan's at. And I thought, like, shit, I don't have to say, like, I don't believe in New Japan anymore because I fucking love New Japan. But for so much of the G1, I was seeing things I liked, but I was doubting the future of New Japan. And over the course of this match, that doubt goes away. And at the end of it, we crown Ryohei Oiwa as the New Japan Climax winner. And I think it's the right call. I think there's something captivating in how this dude wrestles. I think he has a natural connection to the audience. And I think if you need a vanilla-ass babyface, this is your guy. I think this is the guy with the ace potential. Is he there yet? No, of course he's not there. He's too early in his fucking career to be there. Do I think he can get there? Do I see him having, like, generational rivalries with Shota Umino, with Yota Tsuji, with Yuya Uemura? Yes, I do. And I don't think I'm the only one in that, because what you see across the wrestling fandom from this match is people exploding with joy at how good this final was. I think currently this final match is ranked number 8 of all time on Cage Match, which is, like, personally higher than I would put it, but this is an absolute match of the year contender. This was the one of 2 matches I gave 5 stars to the entire G1. Actually, I just want to shout out that second match I gave 5 stars to because I haven't seen anyone talking about it. If you haven't watched Hanari versus Callum Newman from the very last day of G1, it is a legit banger match. And I say that as, like, not the biggest Hanari fan. He was fantastic. Newman was fantastic. He also has a massive future in New Japan if he so chooses, or if he chooses to go somewhere else, we'll see. But yeah, that was the G1. It was the tournaments that convinced me that a fucking headlock can be a finisher. And a lot of people are calling it the Grip 1 because Oiwa's nickname is now The Grip. And he makes it work. So look, I'd say if you wanted to watch one match from this tournament, watch the final. And it's so nice when a tournament, like, its best match is the final match, but I think that's what happened here. It's a match that genuinely made a case for this new era of New Japan, and for the first time in a long time, I'm really excited about where New Japan's headed. So yeah, it's a weird time, it's a good time, and I guess we're just going to see what happens from here.